Welcome everybody. This is the third conversation for Sturm&Drang Studio. Sturm&Drang is a joint project developed by Fondazione Prada and ETH Zurich. And the basic aim of the project is to shed light on different practices by artists working at the fringes of contemporary software development, CGI, and traditional artistic practices. This conversation is with artist Sara Sadik, and together with students from the studio, Freddy Fischli and Nils Olsen, we will have a chance to learn more about your work and basically to discover all the intersection and the hybridization between your work and contemporary practices involving CGI. So thank you for being with us, Sara.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, as I said, the main aim of this conversation is to basically understand what basically you perceive as a difference in the way you are working between a consolidated idea of what an artist is. So we're doing this set of investigation to understand what are the different patterns. So how does your subjectivity as an artist in a way is transformed by these new formats of production, and if you feel yourself working in a different field somehow in relation to what we know as art, you know, from the post-war onwards. So I will be truly interested to basically have a short introduction about your work from your words, and basically understand how do you define yourself as an artist working with these technologies?
I think when I describe myself, I just say that I'm an artist, and I especially make films in which obviously there is some CGI, and I think that my work is hybrid in its form and in its aesthetic, because I take different reference and codes from different domains, and whether it's cinema or like popular culture or I don't know, like sci-fi, for example. So yeah, I think it's hybrid in its forms and aesthetic, but also in its substance, I would say.
And I remember that in the previous sort of informal conversation that we had, we sort of asked you why basically you started using softwares. And your answer was in a way very direct, and you say, because I can model everything that I want. I'm very interested in the connection between your act of creation inside the software to the act of expanding your practice and your basically molds into something which is much more an environment and a performance. So what takes you out there after the software?
I think the software and like CGI helped me to, at the beginning, helped me to like give life to stories that I write. There's something really important in my work and in my writing is to open like the possibilities of existence. So I will explain. So it's how can I make peoples and the stories exist elsewhere and anywhere. And so it's about like times, dimensions, spaces where they don't exist or not yet, for example, the future, or are not allowed to exist. And so CGI was something that I used, I think, as a tool, I would say, that I used, reappropriate, hijack, for example, for Top to God, my last film, to make these stories and these people exist anywhere. And then for when I say anywhere, it's on the works itself, so the film, but it's also in the diffusion of it. It's really important for me that my work and everything that it's in the work, so the people I work with, the thing that I'm telling or talking about, exist everywhere. So, for example, in the cultural institution like a gallery or a museum, or even in internet, on social media. And so, yeah, it's really important for me to have my work in the digital, but also like in a physical space, like art institution. And I think that CGI helped me to give life to the story, and it helped me for after to, I think, legitimate what I'm talking about.
And I'm thinking of your last movie that, as you told me, you basically recorded modifying, set elements in GTA, and I'm very interested lately in this concept developed by this basically Jesuit priest called Teilhard de Chardin, which is a very basic reference for something related to the internet. But I'm always wondering what brings us into a piece and how we can connect with a lot of other person, like as a, not really as a developed network, but how do from the medium that we use can also take part in a way participatory environments, but also with the collective. And I wonder if you ever thought of that, because in a way GTA is one of the games that sort of expanded concept of basically gender, race, and also social class into something that is abruptly customizable, but also incredibly democratic. Of course, if you can allow yourself to buy a PlayStation. But so I wonder if the platform also allows you to speak with a wider audience, but also if you feel that by connecting all the dots, by having the possibility to personalize your features, your characters, your storylines, you feel that this personal approach to a game that is basically a commercial item allows you also to basically connect with all the elements and the people that sort of made your biography. If you feel comfortable, if you can expand a bit on the personal behind your work and the personal way you use software, maybe also as a mean to be with others or speak to somebody else.
Yeah, so I think if we take like Orthopogon, I think the main thing is like representation. So in all my work, I speak about and with, because I write with real life people, stories and words. So it's really like personal and intimate stories of people which are pretty similar, because they are not the same, but it's always teenager or young men from the working class French communities, and also from most of the time Maghrebian diaspora. So I think the main thing is, how are they represented? And for me, they are not represented well. And when I use this, when I choose to use GTA, it was obviously for the fact that it's a really popular game, but it takes place in Los Angeles. It's really like American, and like I knew a lot of guys that played this game. And then there was this phenomena where it was like in the French rap fans community, where fans recreated music videos from French rappers such as Triple Go or PNL, or they created like fan art clips. And what they did is that they created the character, like they personalized the character to look like those rappers who are French from Maghrebian diaspora, from the working class. And so they reappropriated this thing to look like them. And so it was a way from them to say, okay, I exist here. And I wanted to use GTA to, I think, make a tribute to them, and also be part of this phenomena. And so, as we said, I use a lot of, I work with Diego Grandi, and we use a lot of mods created by French user players. So, for example, there is like a piece of clothes that is only worn by teenagers in France, you know, that didn't exist in the game. So we created this, and we created that, and this, like all the elements that are specific to this community. And so, for example, when I showed the movie to my little brother, he felt represented in the game that we play since we were like child, you know. And so, apart from the story that is told, it's like, yeah, it's I use this to serve them and to make them feel legitimate and important. So yeah, this I think it's a tribute, and yeah, so in the process of creating it by using mods already created by French players, by creating some, and we put them in open source after the movie was released. I hope that we took part on this community, French community.
And where comes this like very direct interest in the youth? Because it's not that you would like be general on like migration or working class, but really on youth. And this also is a little bit a link to our thinking behind the exhibition, that Luigi has a little bit this thesis that CGI is done by all young people, that actually it's not something that you learn you have to learn it recently, and you don't really learn it at art schools or at universities, but you learn it through YouTube tutorial, and it's young people that kind of are in these communities. And also the title of the exhibition, Sturm und Drang, kind of referencing to at one time the emotional involvement of that CGI has, that it's not just an image in front of you, but it's always a world you're embedded in, but also the youth of the young authors from the German literature movement from back then. So this interest in really youth and teenagers, I wonder, where is it coming from?
Yeah, I have a huge interest in youth, and I think it comes from a sort of reaction to, as I said, how they are shown and represented. That for me is really like simplified and stereotypical. It's never in the oneness and in all the complexity. And so, yeah, with my work, I try to bring them the legitimacy and the representation that they deserve. And also, we have to not forget that youth, like when we talk about youth, we talk about all the concern of our time. So it's like identity, race, politics, like all those subjects about the society, it's infused in the youth. And they have, I don't know how, but they have the power to talk about all those subjects, to express all those subjects with their own words, their own aesthetic, their own way, and in different forms. And there's like this richness that they have when they talk about all this subject that touch them, that I find really like beautiful. And it's really urgent for me to talk about this and to give a place for them to exist in all the complexities and yeah, all the richness. I'm talking about like really serious subject, but also, I don't know, music, fashion, everything that they create, everything that they use. It's a whole, and I think they deserve to have like a repression of all of this. And yeah, for the digital, I think that I really like the digital because for me it's a place, I would say, that where like the invisibilized one, such as the teenager and the men that I work on and with, can exist and express themselves, but more importantly, in kind of a self-representation. So as I said, they choose what they want to tell, how they want to tell it, what they want to show, how they want to show it, which are aesthetic and everything. And I think that digital is really important for this. And with my work, I try to offer them another type of space with that, like this freedom of emotions and speech and everything.
And I guess, I mean, how I learned about your work, I think a few years ago, I think at the beginning, it really came out of self-representation. I saw all these kind of fake broadcasts where you were kind of always camouflaged as different characters on a TV screen. And now it kind of moved on in this more like where you have you introduced more additional characters.
Yeah.
What I wonder, I mean, since the start, I think always the screen was like the main key of your work, even though, of course, you did sculptures, installation. But then I wonder, like, I mean, it's quite a broad, blunt question, but still, as part of our Sturm&Drang Studio with the students, we talk about the kind of the significance of a museum today. What does the kind of cultural institution mean, both, let's say, architecturally, formally, but also politically, or for society? And I just wonder, like, how do you, because of course one could only experience your work on the screen, but I wonder how you think in general about the museum, because you clearly work in the cultural field.
I would say that if I speak from the people that I work with, the museum is like, first of all, a place where they never go, where they never went. Even me, like the first time I went to the museum, I was already, I think, whether in high school, but like the last year, or at the fine art school already. So it was really later in my life. But yeah, the guy I work with never go to the museum. But when I say, okay, this video will be shown in this museum, I think it's every time it's about this thing of feeling important. And a museum, whether we agree with this or not, is a place that sort of validates, if you will, something. And so when we say, okay, we're going to do this film and this film is going to be shown in a museum, for them it's really important because they feel like important to be listened to, you know. But yeah, I think I understand that some people are like, we don't need museum, or like has been, or you know. But I don't think like this, because when I say that I want to create stories where people and the stories can exist everywhere, it's also on, as I said, on physical, and on space. And for me, they have all the right to exist in internet, in social media, but also in museum, in gallery, in a biennale, in, you know, they have the right to be.
I feel that the way, for instance, your work has been experienced today in museums or in galleries or in biennials or whatever is just a constraint, because I think that society is not yet to a point in which they understand how they should transform in order to, in a way, tune in with the new developments in art and culture. Because I think that, for instance, we can perceive your work as mainly staying with, you know, media works, because we believe that in museums you can only apply a monitors, because there is not yet a typology that, you know, museums are things to basically hang paintings and sculptures, and they're yet very classical. They can transform and shape shift, but their somehow classical DNA doesn't change. And so we're yet to invent a typology that is fitted for something which is not media, which is not cinema, which is not painting or art. And so I think this is why CGI is so interesting today, because it's pushing us into a direction in which the only way in which we can experience it as the general somehow viewer or spectator is through, I would say, a very dumb format of viewing, which is the screen, while in reality is a much complex ways of networking people, interests, cultures, and also, you know, having a common language between things that people that not generally speak with each other. And so I believe that I truly wonder if you have ever thought about, withdrawing from, the general currencies of art, so galleries and whatever, and to shift into a space which is something else. So maybe not social media or whatever, but in the software in itself, because there has been the case of artists, designing plugins. You already, put open source some, customized item for GTA. So I wonder if you ever thought about the way, also the amateur way we use and personalize our format of producing using CGI software and video games. If you ever thought about being in another space, so forget the museum, forget the gallery, forget social media, stay within the software. So what we can do, to who we can speak. So if you ever thought about something like that.
Yeah, I did for the project I'm working on, but it's really like at the beginning of it. I'm talking with artist Nail Beloufa to discuss and to think about possibilities on the software and what we can do. So I don't have already the solution, but we're working on it. But yeah, this is obviously something we have to think about right now. And yeah.
Because it's not just the technical equipment of the museum that also Luigi was talking about. I also think it about like from a social perspective, because then you have like all these like great teenager, all this youth that like comes back in your work, like kind of with its own voice, like with its own costumes, the own accessories that you program everything. But then it's a little bit like in a zoo presented to other people looking at them. You only have the museum goers, biennial manifesta goers. And then sometimes there's a little bit this strange feeling that you have this like museum people looking at teenagers from Marseille from a very distance kind of way. And how your work, I think it would actually, I guess, actual teenagers from Marseille are interested in your work. How can you in a way skip the museum people and go direct to them? Or is it not possible because it's like kind of needs to be part of the art circuit to make it happen? Or even more because for you it's important that this should be art that should be recognized by the art industry and should be in the museum and not should be marginalized and just stay in a video game, but go to the museum?
Yeah, I think it's not like recognized. I wouldn't use this word, but I think it's important. I really don't want to cross like the museum and institutional space, because I think it's a bit of a privileged thing or something that already has it, got it, was in it, and then, okay, we don't need it. But people did never have this. And I think it's continuous thinking about this. But yeah, I think one doesn't erase the other. I think we can have like new forms of diffusions and new form of making something exist in the digital or in like by a software or something. But yeah, I don't want to erase the tangible physical thing.
To help and to add is that I think that museums are like machines for audience cutoff.
Yeah.
So we believe that they can expand on our thinking, but in reality they simply kill any somehow emerging audience. So it is completely erased, even though in a way publicly it works as an echo chamber. But the only thing, for instance, is that I think that CGI and your work can help us in making that, because when museums start looking at things that are in a way new, or they don't feel they have any instrument for that, we can create a little pocket of, in a way, resistance in which, 3 newcomer curators and young artists like you, we can exist in an institutional space, which is in a way never granted, because we believe that museums should do something else. And so I think this is the force of your work, and this basically the idea of a general coalition of people using new methods, trying to transcribe their, in a way, personality and feelings into an art that doesn't really fit, museums' rooms, and that is, I think, is a little piece in overcoming all the institutional problems, all the privilege, and also all the stiffness and in a way, oldness of museums into something else. So I think that your force as an artist is, and also the trigger that is provided by your art stays within that. So with the fact that you're using common ways of, in a way, belonging or production of creativity between peoples, and you are bringing them into something which is very old, like a museums or a gallery, or transforming it by itself. So I need to thank you for that, basically.
No, thank you. But yeah, I think it's museum are obviously so elitist in like the vision, the discourse, the public even. It's like so elitist and so not me. And for me, it's like I want my work to infiltrate and like hack those spaces. And I think it's really possible. And when I think about my work, I'm like, okay, Nana, I do this and this, I write this, I write this. And when I have like a piece in an institutional space, I'm like, okay, like I hack these spaces because it wasn't created for this. It's not like, if you think about it, it's not allowed to be here. For example, for the form of it, so the aesthetic, but also, as I said, for the subject, I'll talk about like, if you think about it, my work has no right to be in the space, So yeah, for me it's important like to infiltrate the space.
Also, what you said in terms of right, I mean that if the artwork has a right to be in a space, what also really struck me that in a way, most of your work, I almost read like a really strong, both kind of brutal and seductive campaign. I think they always have this kind of really blunt kind of advertisement quality to a degree, or even a kind of propagandistic feeling. Yeah. Sometimes also your performative work.
Yeah.
And I'm quite curious because in a way I thought like the most recent film in a way was a bit different, because the other work is more, let's say, yeah, aggressive visually, but also really seductive and really attractive. And the most recent film I thought was quite melancholic to a certain degree, and it had like this suspense, but nevertheless it felt quite almost in a funny way poetic.
I think that there's something that it's really like, for example, for the sports in the sports scene, when you talk about how you feel like an empty body, dehumanized, and he has like this speech on how he is perceived by other people, as an empty, heartless body. I think that it's something really something really strong, but it's in a way, melancholic, and so. But I really hope that, because for me, in everything that is said, even if there is like this love story and the friendship, there is times where he say something really like important in the society, like when you work and when you feel like a piece of shit because of how people perceive him. I think there is something really strong, and I really hope that we can feel it. So yeah, I just think that it's less frontal, but I really hope that we can still feel him and perceive this. I hope so.
Maybe I have another question, because I'm wondering if you ever thought about integrating like interactive performance or interactive parts into your art to somehow force an interaction between the youth your art is representing and the traditional visitor of the museum, to somehow dismantle the elitist club effect of the museum.
For the film, at the beginning, it was like it should have had the form of a game, like a choose your own story game. And so at the beginning, I was like, okay, it's going to be a game, and people from the public who are going to the exhibition will play the game. And then I was like, okay, I don't want anyone, like, I don't want like a white woman, a white old woman to play this character. I don't want her to direct his life. So I realized like this interactive thing on the film.
The main interest in CGI comes from, and also Sturm&Drang, comes from the fact that, in a way, technology demolishes, or distributed software technology, like, you know, all the programs that everybody uses for collaborative work, in a way dismantle authorship. So somehow, you know, Photoshop is too interesting, because I remember early in the days when you had that block of, you know, software coder inserted in it as author. So one of the main interests that we have is that we are trying to understand what are the environments, the practices, and the patterns of this sort of creative class working in, you know, CGI studios, you know, as amateur, going on YouTube, finding tutorials, and, you know, starting out a careers, and in a way hacking a system of production that once belonged to the atelier and now is, you know, going back to your bedroom and, you know, your, in a way, dirty keyboard. And I wonder that, I think that your work in a way is very personal, even though you use, you know, common platforms. And I wonder if you know, I perceive in it a desire to speak of something else and to speak to a lot of people, and also to provide some doubt to a lot of people. But I wonder if you ever feel or ever question yourself that in order to speak with an incredible amount of person, or you know, a truly distributed audience, you need to demolish your autonomy as an artist, like you know, all the creative class working in CGI. So I wonder if there is any conflict in you about, you know, being very personal and being in a way truly represented by the work that you do, because we can see it's yours and we feel it. And maybe, you know, expanding even more about, you know, the possibility of your work to communicate to a whole audience, and so dismantling yourself as an author. So I wonder if you ever thought about it. So distributed authorship vis-a-vis, you know, the classical artist atelier format of authorship.
I'm never like it's never like me, my work, my things, and I always work with people who have like different. Of course, there's like the technical team, if you will, like the musical composer, the editor, but there is also the people I write with.
We feel that it was about your work being very you, but also being very, in a way, I won't say it, you know, very democratic, very distributed, very in the zone. So I wonder if you can expand on you being you, and the wall outside of you being something that can influence you or not, or how do you feel outside? So how do you feel also you represented in your work, because you do a great effort in representing a lot of things that are missing today in the culture. And how do you feel also, what about your presence? So do you allow it? Do you feel like you need it? I think it's needed.
Obviously, from the beginning, why I wanted to work on the youth, it's because of my own youth. So my work is like unconsciously a way to talk about me and what I missed when I was younger and when I was a teenager. For me, I am like a stool to create story and to write story on other people. And then the way that it is shown by another type of people, like I never think about who is going to watch this, who is going to, like, I'm just, okay, I want to tell this, show this, I'm doing it. And then the way it is perceived by other people, I never think about this.
Yeah, I have maybe a question, maybe a thought. I'm really I never actually did 3D CGI, but I sometimes use the 3D to create object. So with 3D fabrication standards, and I don't know. I try to be not too much naive, but because of an aesthetic contamination, as we were speaking, is not about DIY anymore. It's about customizing, and also for architecture and for 3D standard fabrication is an industrial standard killer, because it kills everything, and it's a sort of chameleontic process. And for what I think is what is changing is not about creativity, but is about the accessibility of the formal interventions and concept, because we have multi-layer and it's more easy to customize, not in a DIY way, but in a pro way. A lot of, I'm thinking about video games, I'm thinking about the painting of majors, was still slow, the process on this. And so, yeah, I think in the end, also if it's 3.0 software, 3.0 elements, it's not about creativity, but it's really the accessibility of the work. So an expanded work.
I think creativity has a place after this, but yeah, 3D. I also use like 3D for creating objects. I'm not like a huge technical CGI artist. I'm more using it for creating objects or props or things like this. But yeah, it helped me making what I want accessible and proving to others that it's possible if you just have to like. You don't have to be like a huge creative. You just have to have like an idea. You can make it, and creativity can come after this. But yeah, I agree with what you say.
This I really like with your work, because of course it's not this kind of fetish of technique. It's really more rough. It's really based on the ready-made and on appropriation. And this I really like with the most recent film, because of course it's kind of a surreal idea of the ready-made, that you take a video game and then kind of transfer it or exhibit it as an artwork in a way. It's kind of a CGI ready-made.
Yeah. For me, I think it's a ready-made. Sometimes I create. Sometimes I just like search for modelization and I use it, or like I reappropriate it, or like I modifying it. Yeah, I'm just using this as a tool that exists and that can help me creating something, if you will. But yeah, it's.
And so Sara, you always so you write and you know, we know that script writing is you know, another format of writing. It's not like writing prose, it's not like writing an article, not like writing an essay. It has a set of rules and codes, and you know, sometimes even softwares like Final Draft to, you know, properly set all the standards of, you know, movie scripting. But I do wonder if you have any reference. So where do you take, you know, narrative installments, or if you have, you know, some sort of mirror in something else, in some movies, in some, you know, pieces of text that you use and you integrate in the narratives that you develop. So I wonder, what are these references?
Yeah, well, first of all, I never use like the proper form of script. I never cancel. I'm just like open in design and just put like a huge block of text, and that's it. But yeah, I sometimes I use lyrics from French rap music, which I listen like a lot of it. So sometimes I take like part or like one lyrics of a music. Like I think it's sometimes maybe 40% of the writing, and then something is just like a dialogue from a movie, or like a part of maybe like a documentary or something that I, or a series, like something that I like. In my phone I have like notes with everything that I heard or read and that I like. There's also sometimes tweets so from Twitter that I took, but it's most of the time it's something really popular. So like music, tweets, Instagram stories, like just bribes of text that I found on the internet. More like something like cinema or book. It's never like small. Yeah.
Instead, it's like writing, like screen grabbing. Text.
Yeah.
This sounds really. I didn't know about these works. This sounds really great.
Yeah, but it's in all my like if we take like the last film.
Yes.
It's so it's a script for the scene and everything, but everything that is said for me is like internal monologues. So there's always blogs. So there's like retranscription of audio that friend of mine sent me, like on Instagram, like audio, and then I rewrite it and put it in the script. There's lyrics of French music. So for the example, the last thing that the actors say is like from a French rock music. And yeah, there's a thing called street love quotes. And so it's in the app We Earth It. And so you just like type street love quotes, and it's just teenagers from like the working class, and it's like they write quotes using the romantic literature form, but with their own words, which is like really interesting. I really like this type of, it's like hybrid part of text, and so there's a lot of this. Yeah.
But did you also once intend to kind of make a work out of this kind of ready-made script collage as well?
Yeah. When I was in school, I did like a novel, and it was text with this type of. It was only text. It was a novel, and it was writing using this technique. But yeah, it's in all my works. Like all my works are writing like this.
And do you have any, I mean, this is a very basic question, but to me is something that I always ask, generally ask people about their morning routine. So what do they eat for breakfast? But also about, I really annoy people asking what is their favorite movie, but also in the sense that I'm truly interested to see what are the holders of interest of all the people that surrounds me. So I'm always trying to understand if there is still the possibility of having one movie that defines everything, or one movie that we use, or a novel or a piece of art that we use to charge our work, or if this thing is not impossible. So do you have any reference point like that, or it is much more distributed? So instead of maybe I do have my favorite movie, I do have my favorite scene in a video game, or I do have my favorite Reddit account. So do you have some sort of referential background? So what are the references that maybe stayed with you since your childhood? So do you have I'm very curious about understanding basically your in a way not really cultural background, because this sounds stupid, but to understand what are the holders of interest for you in the common culture.
I think, yeah, I do, like, whenever I am asked what's your favorite movie, your favorite thing, I don't have any, like, I never can answer this question, but I will say that something that stayed with me since I'm a child, and it's like really inspirational for my rock, is and will always be French rap music. Like, this is the main thing, and within it, because when I talk about music, there's also video clips, there's also the fashion brands that the rapper creates, so it's like different domains involved in what I call French rap music. So I would say this is the main thing that's in me, in my rock, and in my daily life, and here in how I talk, how I dress, everything. I think this is the main thing. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I think that's really a great, perhaps like a final statement in a way to the talk.
Okay, so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.